Episode number 351, Realm of Stellar Synthesis. Kane's eyes widened with awe and shock as he focused on the Tower of Concepts. He expected to find a cultivation heaven from which he could draw inspiration toward the power bond of the collective mind of Ether's sentient life forms. Yet, it was actually a training ground that would put him against the ego waves of gods. A bursting red light emerged from Kane's eyes as the desire to fight burned inside his soul, and he felt his son's seed beating with energy, ready to engage in fights against the ego wave left behind by divine ascension gods. However, Kane did not lose focus nor act rashly. After all, he was a guest of the Crown Prince and could not just access the tower at will. Luckily for Kane and everybody else, the Crown Prince did not leave them waiting.
Two people can access each tower at the same time. I and Black will head into the Tower of Concepts. You six should figure out who would first enter the Tower of Stars and Tower of Laws.
Michael did not say anything else before he and the 3-meter-tall military criminal, who went by the moniker of Black, touched the dark tower and vanished inside. As soon as Michael vanished, two groups formed. One group with Kane, Desmond, and Magnus, who sought to enter the Tower of Stars, and the other with Iris, Crane, and the Anima Mechanicus race's Genius, which aimed at the Tower of Laws. Kane, Desmond, and Magnus look at each other with fighting will. Since the tower could only hold two people at the same time, one of them would have to wait. There was no need for words as the trio put their right hands behind their backs, and 3 seconds later, they released them.
Papas. Rockets. Papas.
Following a tradition of the old world, the trio played an ancient game to decide who would have to wait, and Desmond could do nothing but show a downcast expression as he saw his clenched fists and the open palms of Kane and Magnus. Crane, Iris, and the young Anima Mechanicus race's Genius played the same game, and the young woman was the one who lost. Kane saw that Crane won, and a small smile appeared on his face as he nodded to this one before calmly walking toward the Tower of Stars along with Magnus. The Duke glanced at each other, but none said a word. While there were many things to discuss, this was not the time, and both of them cleansed their minds of everything other than the tower. Kane touched the Tower of Stars, immediately teleporting into this one, appearing in a void empty of any color or source of light. Just as Kane was wondering what happened, a will with a power like nothing he had ever felt flooded his body and mind.
We are made of stardust. The universe is in your veins.
Those words made Kane's soul tremble as the black void around him burst to pieces, revealing a dense concentration of celestial bodies and mysterious energies. Kane's mind could not process such a wonderful scene, and the only way he could describe it was like watching a galaxy from the point of view of a cosmic entity. The next second, he saw his entire body crumble into dust particles, becoming one with the surroundings. It did not take long for them to agglomerate, fusing with streams of stellar energy and transforming into a drifting meteorite. There was no fear in his heart since, for some reason, he felt that this was the purest state that his body could attain. Every cell that made his flesh and blood longed for this state, and now that he had achieved it, he felt freer than ever before in his entire life. Kane's meteorite body moved across the vast expanse of space. Despite the lack of any form of sentience, he had never felt more surrounded by life than at this moment. Space was alive with swirling nebulae, pulsating stars, and distant galaxies that gleamed like diamond clusters. Every second that Kane spent inside this cosmic tapestry raised his mind to a higher level of understanding regarding his body and how there were no real limitations to this one, not even the ones engraved in the laws that rule the world. It was impossible for Kane to tell the flow of time in his current state, but after what felt like years, one phenomenon captured his attention more than any other. Kane saw a distant supernova in its final stages of life, showcasing the spectacular death of a star. The vibrant blue, gold, and crimson hues painted an ethereal tapestry against the inky blackness of space. Feeling a profound connection to this cosmic event, Kane used the full power of his will, allowing his particles to leave the meteorite and fuse with the dying star. Immediately, he found himself at the very heart of that dying star, feeling its tumultuous energy, the immense pressure, and the searing heat. As he delved deeper into his meditation, the boundary between himself and the star began to blur. The phenomenon's complexity was so high that Kane's mind could not comprehend it, so he shut down the part of his brain that attempted to understand it, allowing his soul and body to perceive it at an intuitive level. As he let go of the self, Cain felt a rush of insights flooding his consciousness. He visualized the intricacies of nuclear fusion, witnessing atoms colliding and fusing to form heavier elements. Finally, the star could not endure anymore, triggering a blast that unleashed more energy in a few seconds than what the old world's sun could do in billions of years. As the star went supernova, the materials unleashed by its explosion spread across the galaxy and fused within them were also Cain's particles. Cain's brain had completely shut down, and he could not think. Normally, at this point, the cultivator would have woken up since they lost consciousness due to their souls being unable to endure the pressure of the new knowledge. At this point, the power of the Tower of Stars would have gently restored Cain's body, but someone intervened. Apex saw how Cain's soul sea was shaking due to the pressure of such overwhelming knowledge. His eyes narrowed as he increased the amount of soul force emanating from the astral blood beast soul core. The infusion of soul force allowed Cain's soul to stabilize, allowing his journey inside the Tower of Stars to continue. The materials mixed with Cain's particles spread across the galaxy by the supernova, generating new heavenly bodies. As Cain lost himself in that wonderful journey, he had completely forgotten about the outside world, but the same could not be said about the people outside the Tower of Stars. Michael and Black emerged from the Tower of Concepts, their eyes glowing with a bursting ego wave. The duo was tired, but their minds immediately grew sharp as they saw everybody gathered outside the Tower of Stars.
What is happening?
The Crown Prince knew there was a problem when he saw the worry and concern in Crane and Desmond's faces.
It is Cain. He is still inside the Tower of Stars.
Desmond immediately answered, making shock appear in the eyes of the Crown Prince and Black. Due to his power and background, the Crown Prince knew what would happen once you were inside the Tower of Stars. Once you touch the Tower of Stars, you do not enter the tower but something much more profound. Your mind and body would become one with it, granting you a truly transcendental experience. Your body would become one with the heavenly bodies, allowing your soul to grasp the realm of stellar-synthesis, the first of the three great realms that astral cultivators must master in their path beyond their mortal shell. In the realm of stellar-synthesis, a cultivator understands the birth and death of stars, the primary architects of existence. These stars, much like gigantic nuclear reactors, experience nuclear fusion in their cause. This fusion of lighter elements, mainly hydrogen and helium, results in the creation of heavier elements. Grasping this concept of stellar nucleosynthesis allows a cultivator to understand the foundational process of how elements are created. Understanding that principle would allow an astral rebirth cultivator to harness the power of the stars inside their bodies, granting them the might that surpassed nuclear weapons. However, the process must be gradual and steady, since the full knowledge of the realm of stellar synthesis is too much for the soul of someone beneath the apotheosis realm. Normally, a wave champion would only remain within the Tower of Stars for 2 to 3 days before the tower expelled them to ensure no harm was done to their souls. Even the exceptional talents like Desmond and Magnus only lasted 4.5 days. However, Cain had already been inside the Tower of Stars for over 10 days. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 352, The Golden Emperor. Michael frowned as he understood the implications of a wave champion staying inside the Tower of Stars for 10 days. The pressure on Cain's soul should have already reached an unbearable level and on the brink of collapse. It might have shattered already, leaving Cain like nothing more than an empty husk. Just as Michael wondered what was happening with the Tower of Stars, he saw Crane walking toward him. Crane ignored everyone as he stood right in front of the Crown Prince, before kneeling on the ground and lowering his head.
I beg you, mighty Crown Prince, to save my lord.
No one looked down on Crane for kneeling before the Crown Prince. Actually, the fact he was willing to go to that extreme for the safety of Cain made the entire group's opinion about this one improve. Before the Crown Prince could even give Crane an answer, a member of his own group approached his side.
Crown Prince, I must also ask for your assistance, as we cannot let anything bad happen to Colonel Lorifer.
The one who spoke was Iris, confusing many people since she had not once interacted with Cain. Michael stared at the young woman, and his eyes narrowed as she softly nodded. He immediately raised his hand, stopping Desmond, who was about to ask the same thing as the other two.
I will handle it.
The Crown Prince took a deep breath, and the next second, a mighty silver force field emerged from his brain. Everything around him began to tremble as the power of his ego wave went beyond just manipulating the wave. Awe appeared in the heart of everybody watching that mighty silver force field, as they felt in it enough power to crush their bodies and annihilate their minds. Black was the only one who did not feel completely overwhelmed by the Crown Prince's ego wave. Still, a solemn light appeared in the giant's eyes. The Crown Prince did not lose focus as he sent his ego wave into the Tower of Stars. He wanted to merge his silver force field into the superstructure in order to locate Cain. Michael wanted to understand the state of Cain's body and soul before trying to take this one out. Unfortunately for Michael, just as his ego wave made contact with the Tower of Stars, this one unleashed a monstrous gravitational might, shattering the silver force field to pieces. Michael could not help but release a small scream of pain as he grabbed his head due to the unbearable pain. He retracted his ego wave immediately, as he could not endure any more damage. Downcast expressions appeared on the faces of Crane, Iris, and Desmond as they saw the state of the Crown Prince. If not even the mighty Michael Goldsoul, whose ego wave reached the third realm, could help Cain, then who could? Michael took a moment to regulate his breathing and suppress the pain assaulting his brain before starting at the trio. He used all his power, but the Tower of Stars was too much for him. Just as the Crown Prince was about to shake his head, leaving Cain's fate to luck, his gaze raised to the sky. Michael noticed it first, but it did not take long for the others to see the incredibly majestic and powerful force descending from the heavens. It was a golden force field in the form of a majestic wingless dragon. Michael's ego wave was impressive, but the one descending from the sky was on a whole new level. Michael took a knee, and the rest of the group immediately followed him as they lowered their heads. The reason for that behavior was simple. That majestic golden force field in the form of a dragon was no other than the ego wave of the strongest life form in the Godslayer humankind empire, the Golden Emperor. It moved at a shocking speed, blasting into the Tower of Stars, easily overcoming the gravitational force of this one. Michael, Iris, Crane, and the rest of the group felt a sense of pure admiration and wonder as they saw the might of the golden force field, and they were not the only ones. The power of the Golden Dragon was felt across the Silver City, and dozens of powerhouses turned their gazes toward the 3 Towers of Adam. All wondered what could be so important as to draw the Golden Emperor to unleash his ego wave. Nearly a minute passed as the golden force field merged into the Tower of Stars before it retracted to the sky, vanishing from sight. Michael, Crane, Iris, Desmond, and the others all wondered what would happen with Cain. Luckily, they did not have to wait for long as a booming voice echoed across the sky, reaching every corner of the Silver City.
The genetic tournament will be delayed 1 month.
The voice of the Golden Emperor spread across Eden, pushing the genetic tournament that was supposed to happen in a few days, an entire month. Confusion appeared in the faces of many people as they heard the decree of the Golden Emperor. While the genetic tournament was an important event, it was far from enough to draw the attention of the ruler of the Godslayer humankind empire. However, shock and realization appeared in the eyes of the group that was currently in the 3 Towers of Adam. Since it was a matter of life and death, no one really thought about it before, but Cain was supposed to participate in the genetic tournament. There would be no reason for the Golden Emperor to delay the genetic tournament if Cain could not participate, so it meant that the young man was fine inside the Tower of Stars. A radiant smile appeared on Crane's face, but some, like the Crown Prince and Magnus Hellblazer, had much deeper expressions. Cain was wave champion, and even with the improvement of his ego wave, his soul force still failed to reach the wave king rank, so he should not be able to endure this long inside the Tower of Stars, yet he did. And by the response of the Golden Emperor, Cain must be thriving.
We should leave. It is best if we are not here when the powerhouses of Eden come to find out what is happening with the Tower of Stars.
Michael spoke with a solemn voice as he looked into the distance and felt several powerful intents approaching their location. The rest of the group nodded. Desmond, Magnus, Crane, Iris, and the young genius of the Anima Machinarium race had already gone through the Tower of Stars and Tower of Laws. While they wanted to try the Tower of Concepts, it was not the right time. Michael guided the group to the teleportation formation, leaving the 3 towers of Adam. Crane followed them, but not before glancing at the Tower of Stars one last time. While he would have wanted to stay, he did not have the authorization. Still, he was confident that no one could harm Cain inside the Tower of Stars, so the only thing he could do was wait for this one to emerge. A few hours after the events in the 3 towers of Adam, Michael and Iris were in a dark room.
Are you sure about it?
There was a solemn expression on the Crown Prince's face as he spoke to the woman.
Yes, Master. Their demeanor, personality, way of speaking, along with his impressive genetic coder abilities and battle power, there is no doubt in my mind.
Iris made a pause before looking directly into the Crown Prince's eyes.
Cain Lorifer must be King's personal disciple.
The Crown Prince's eyes narrowed as he stared at Iris. He had given the young woman the task of tracking down the man that went by the moniker of King and who saved her during the events of Sahara City. Iris had done her best, using every means available to track down King, but she had found nothing. That was until she met Cain. The way Cain behaved, his battle skills, and his mastery over genetic coding made Iris grow suspicious, but the key behind her conjecture was when she felt his ego wave. It was not uncommon for a student to mimic the behavior and personality of their master, and Cain's ego wave felt nearly identical to the one that saved her life. Michael stared at Iris for a moment before nodding.
Well done, now leave and do not reveal this to anyone.
Iris clasped her hands and bowed to the Crown Prince before leaving the room. Thousands of kilometers away from the shore of the Gaia continent, there was a small island. There was nothing special about it other than the fact it had 10 mountains that rose above the clouds. Usually, an island in the middle of the ocean would be overwhelmed by wave beasts, but not even Grand King Beast dared to get near it. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 353, The Void King. The reason no beast dared to approach this place was simple. It was the life forms atop the mountain peaks. 4 were in their true bodies, while the others appeared only as incarnations of Ego Wave. Those in the form of incarnations were utterly dark and showed no features. Still, this did not diminish the might of their auras. The mere presence of any one of them was enough to deter even the mightiest of wave beasts. Had Cain been present, he would have recognized 2 of the individuals present, or at least their auras. One was enshrouded in shadows, while the other was a flayed body draped in a thick cloak of blood energy. They were none other than the Shadow King and Blood King, the duo that almost obliterated the Blood Sea if not for the appearance of the first collapsing lightning pillar. Given this and the layout of the mountains, it was easy to deduce that the other 6 individuals were none other than the mighty Dark Kings, rulers of the underworld spanning the Godslayer humankind empire.
Why are we here? I was in the midst of my recovery when I was summoned in my physical form.
The one who shouted was the Blood King, clear rage and anger evident in his eyes. The ego wave he unleashed was in a constant state of disarray. Although the rest of the Dark Kings displayed annoyance at the Blood King, they remained silent, knowing it was unwise to antagonize him while his ego-eternal matrix was disrupted. The Blood King had been forced to transfer his soul into another body after Cain destroyed his previous one. And while the High Blood Elder's alter ego and soul were quickly destroyed, the adaptation process would still take several years. Until then, the Blood King would be unable to display his full power and suffer from emotional outbursts. Seeing that no one answered his question just made the Blood King even more furious. But before he could shout again, a new incarnation of Ego Wave manifested atop the highest peak. As soon as he appeared, a solemn expression settled on all the Dark Kings, even silencing the volatile Blood King.
I am pleased to see all of you here.
The man at the highest peak spoke in a deep voice, his words resonating through the air, causing the ocean thousands of meters below to churn. His ego wave was so monstrous that he could unleash immense power even at this vast distance from his true body. Being in the form of an ego wave incarnation, his physical features were concealed, but his eyes were visible. They were black, speckled with points of starlight, resembling a starry sky.
I humbly greet you, Void King.
One of the Dark Kings, present in his true body, clasped his hands and bowed. The man had white hair, crystal blue eyes, and pointy ears. While those features were elegant, the ones that distinguished him were the horns on his head, draconic blue scales on his limbs, and long blue tails emerging from his back. The other Dark Kings sneered at this deference, considering it unworthy of a king. Yet they held their tongues, recognizing his immense power and critical role in their organization.
We have come as you commanded, but it seems the Golden King is ignoring your summons.
Many Dark Kings shook their heads. Other than his obsequious attitude, the main reason they disliked the man was his constant attempts to undermine other Dark Kings. All were aware of the empty mountain peak, but did not really care. The Golden King was a Dark King in name only, not truly aligning with the organization's objectives. However, his expertise in logistics and commerce benefited them all, so they overlooked his lack of commitment.
Soul King, there's no need to worry about the Golden King. I ordained him as a Dark King, so you are questioning my decision.
The Void King's eyes unleashed a powerful intent that made the entire island tremble. Usually, he would not care about the animosity between Dark Kings, but this time things were different.
Of course not, leader.
The Soul King immediately bowed his head, recognizing when to assert himself and when to retreat. He was confused by the behavior of the Void King, but chose to remain silent. The Void King gazed at the Soul King briefly before turning his starry eyes to the other Dark Kings.
The reason I summoned you is that we must finalize our preparations. The great cataclysm is near.
A solemn aura enveloped the Dark Kings. The Great Cataclysm was a pivotal event that would shake the entire Gate continent, with repercussions felt throughout ether. Despite their power, any misstep could be fatal.
First of all, we need to address the Egon family. They have been gathering information about our business and are too efficient to be left alone.
As the name of the Egon family was mentioned, a sharp light emerged from the eyes of the Shadow Kings.
I will take care of them.
The Dark Kings turned to the Shadow King with surprise, as they did not expect him to react in such a manner. Typically, the Shadow King rarely acted, but he seemed eager to go against them this time. Although the Dark Kings did not know the reason behind the hostility of the Shadow King toward the Egon family, they were more than happy to let this one take care of them. The Egon family dared to investigate the organization because they had the brute power to defend themselves from the Dark Kings. It would be dangerous to go against them, so they were happy to see that there was a volunteer.
You won't.
Unfortunately for the Shadow King and the other Dark Kings, the Void King immediately turned him down.
I will not allow your vendetta to interfere with our plans, especially in such a crucial moment.
A cold light appeared in the Shadow King's eyes, but it vanished swiftly under the intense focus of the Void King. He took a deep breath, calmed his heart, and then nodded.
Soul King and Undying King, you two will meet the patriarch of the Egon family. Make him understand that it's best if he stays away from our business. If he refuses, confront him. Seize the opportunity to eliminate him if it arises, but retreat if his power has reached the High Titan level. We will handle him later.
The Soul King immediately nodded, as he always followed the Void King's commands without hesitation. However, the expression of the man to his left was less compliant. The Undying King resembled a 4-meter-tall giant with a bulging, muscular body and skin that looked like leather stretched across his muscles. His eyes, sunk deep into his skull, were blank, resembling those of a blind man. Those physical features were startling, but what truly drew awe in the hearts of those who focused on the Undying King was his lack of life force. Not only was there not even the slightest stream of vitality emerging from his body, but a dark aura surrounded him, polluting the air with the power of death.
Why not take care of the Blood Sea directly? They commissioned the Egon family to investigate us. It would be far simpler to eliminate them than to confront the patriarch.
The other Dark Kings nodded in agreement with the Undying King's logic. While the Blood Sea was recognized as a formidable power, it had lost a significant number of its elites. A single Dark King would suffice to bring them down. When your battle power reached a high enough level, numbers were meaningless. The only members of the Blood Sea that could face the Dark Kings were the Blood Duke and Bloodless One, and once they were dead, everybody else would follow.
The Blood Sea has heavily fortified their surveillance and defenses. They've set up a teleportation formation connecting directly to the Imperial Lightning Fort. If we assault them, the collapsing Lightning Duke or the First Pillar might intervene.
A wave of dread washed over the Dark Kings upon hearing those names. While the Blood Duke was merely a Titan, the collapsing Lightning Duke and the First Pillar were apex beings. The outcome of a direct confrontation was uncertain, but battling the Sector Duke or First Pillar while Divine Ascension cultivators supported them would be fatal. Since that was the current state of the Blood Sea, going after them would be much more dangerous than facing the Egon family. The Undying King sighed upon receiving this information. Clearly displeased with his task, he nonetheless didn't dare challenge the Void King and simply nodded in acquiescence. The Void King fixed his gaze upon the duo before shifting it to the Blood King and Shadow King.
I have an assignment for you two as well.
Neither the Blood King nor the Shadow King was taken aback. Those chosen for crucial missions were always summoned in their physical forms, so they anticipated this.
You two will kill Cain Lorifer.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 354, Emerging from the Tower of Stars.
You two will kill Cain Lorifer.
A wide smile appeared on the bloodied face of the Blood King as he listened to the Void King's words. There was no way he would have forgotten the young man who thwarted his plan to seize the blood astral beast's soul and blood. However, the other Dark Kings frowned. They were at the peak of the ether, with power that could surpass the old world's H-bomb, yet they were tasked with dealing with a mere 17-year-old. The Void King noticed their dismay and offered an explanation for targeting such an insignificant character.
Cain Lorifer has interfered with the organization on multiple occasions. He not only disrupted the Blood King's plans, but I'm 99% certain he was behind the upheaval in Sahara City.
The Dark Kings looked at the Void King in surprise upon hearing this. While the genetic experiments in Sahara City weren't of significant concern, they were part of a larger strategy, and its disruption set back their agenda by several months.
That boy's destiny continues to soar, and he has already become a shining star among the Empire's youth. That alone wasn't reason enough for us to act. However, he spent nearly 14 days inside the Tower of Stars.
Surprise, awe, and killing intent flashed in the Dark King's eyes upon learning this. 14 days in the Tower of Stars implied that Cain's comprehension of the realm of stellasynthesis approached the threshold for divine ascension. Understanding something and harnessing its power are two different matters. Yet, if Cain went unchecked and his cultivation base reached the Wave King rank, and then his battle power would become formidable. While they could still easily eliminate him, complications often arise with prodigious talents. The Blood King's cold smile vanished, replaced by sheer coldness and killing intent. He was sure that just as he wanted Cain dead, the boy harbored the same intent. If Cain's power grew unchecked for another century, they might become equals, a scenario the Blood King wouldn't tolerate.
I am more than willing to end the boy's life, but even entering the Prometheus sector undetected poses a challenge, let alone infiltrating Eden.
The Void King nodded, turning to the Shadow King, the likely candidate for such covert tasks.
I can get the Blood King into the Prometheus sector, but Silver City's defenses are too formidable, even for me.
The Void King nodded, pausing to formulate a strategy.
Shadow King, you will escort the Blood King into the Prometheus sector and extract him once he's completed his mission.
The Shadow King nodded. While he was keen to showcase his combat prowess against the Egon family for other objectives, he primarily acted as a conduit.
Blood King, the assassination is your responsibility. Do you have a plan to lure the boy out of Eden?
The Blood King paused, then responded.
I could exploit the Azure royal family. From what I know of him, the boy is typically cautious, but acts decisively against atrocities committed against the weak and innocent. However, this might expose our ties to the Azure royal patriarch.
The Void King's gaze sharpened as he weighed the proposal, then turned to an incarnation on his left.
Chimera King.
The incarnation referred to as the Chimera King lacked distinctive features like all the others. However, his form was truly odd and definitely not that of a human.
They've reached the final phase of the experiment, but the data they've been sending is flawed. Their test subjects keep accumulating issues, and I doubt they can be useful anymore. I have no problem with eliminating them.
The Void King nodded, then turned to the Blood King.
You have authorization to utilize them, but regardless of their current worth, they remain a piece on the chessboard. If you're going to sacrifice them, ensure it guarantees mission success. Despite his youth, Cain Lorifer is cunning and astute. Any obvious trap will be detected.
The Blood King's eyes sharpened, his expression solemn.
I understand. I won't underestimate him. Good, you four know your tasks. As for the others, continue expanding our influence. Our lives will be on the line when the great cataclysm comes, so we must be at our peak.
The Dark Kings nodded, and in the next moment, the ego wave incarnation faded. The Shadow King placed a hand on the Blood King's shoulder, then disappeared. The Soul King and Undying King didn't leave immediately. They both delved into the ocean. Preparing to combat the patriarch of the Egon family, they needed to hone their battle prowess and instincts to their zenith.
BOOMMMs.
Immediately, the ocean entered a state of complete chaos, with powerful explosions whose shock waves extended for thousands of kilometers. The wave beasts that inhabited this part of the ocean were extremely powerful, but dozens of them perished every second under the combined might of the Soul King and Undying King. Blood tainted the waters as the aura of death spread to every corner, and the power of the duo performing the slaughter just kept growing. It was the 15th day since Cain entered the Tower of Stars. His mind had completely shed the ego, erasing all complex thoughts, allowing his soul to meld with the stellar cycle. The knowledge and insights of stellar synthesis integrated with his spirit. Although this was a tremendous stroke of luck that would benefit him in the future, it also posed a significant risk, overwhelming his soul. Apex continually used the astral blood beast soul Ka to stabilize Cain's soul sea, but after 15 days, even that proved insufficient. The golden humanoid noted the trembling of the soul sea and its diminishing spiritual energy output. This thrust Cain into deep unconsciousness, placing him in peril. Before any harm could befall his soul, the Tower of Stars sensed his condition and began reconstructing his body and spirit, gently rousing him from the transcendental state he'd submerged into. Enjoy new adventures at Freeweb Novel. Outside the 3 towers of Adam, over a dozen people waited. When Cain arrived, it had been empty, courtesy of the Crown Prince's influence, but typically individuals of high standing queued for entry. While the Towers of Concepts and Tower of Laws functioned normally, the Tower of Stars faced an issue. Its capacity had been reduced to 1 user. Clearly, someone occupied it, and as days went by, onlookers grew curious about who could endure such an extended stay. A middle-aged man exited the Tower of Stars with profound insight gleaming in his eyes and a satisfied smile on his lips, having advanced his understanding of the realm of stellar synthesis. Almost immediately, another individual approached the tower. However, before he could touch it, the Tower of Stars shone once again, signaling another departure. All eyes turned to the newcomer, eager to identify the individual who'd managed such a long tenure in the Tower of Stars. Most expected an ancient powerhouse, considering the fortitude required. Yet, to their astonishment, they saw a young man with chrome hair and dark eyes. Cain's eyes were bursting with red light as waves of information and insights flooded his mind. Everything around him went blank as he could only focus on the transcendental experience he had just undergone. Although his mind went blank very soon during the process, the feelings of being part of a celestial body, experiencing a supernova, and his particles generating new astral structures were vivid inside his soul. Yet, Cain's eyes soon grew sharp as he felt powerful people looking at him, some not bothering to disguise their probing gazes. Cain was confused as he did not understand where the Crown Prince and the others had gone, but as he looked at the date with his AI chip module, a wave of shock assaulted him. 15 days. He was aware that the more time he spent inside the Tower of Stars, the greater the benefits, but that also meant more tremendous pressure on his soul. Cain did not think he would last more than 5 days, but made a mistake. How? There was no damage to his soul. confusing Cain on how he could have stayed inside the Tower of Stars for so long without any backlash. The obvious answer was the absolute life form system, but he still felt there was something more about it. Many questions assaulted Cain's mind, but the first thing he needed to do was to leave this place.
Young man, could you come here for a moment?
Unfortunately for Cain, it was not so simple since he had yet to take a step when an old man summoned him. The old man had long gray hair, and a gargantuan energy pool was inside his body. While he expressed his words as a question, the intent in his eyes made it clear that he would not allow Cain to simply leave. Cain's eyes grew cold, but before things escalated to something else, the teleportation formation in the area glowed, showing the presence of Crane. The middle-aged man drew people's attention, not only due to his timely arrival, but his powerful aura. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 355, Genetic Tournament I. Crane immediately noticed the tense atmosphere between Cain and the old man. Moving quickly, he positioned himself in front of Cain and bowed.
Lord, I am thrilled to see you have emerged. The Crown Prince has been inquiring about you. We should inform him of your condition.
As soon as the Crown Prince's name was mentioned, everyone adopted a cautious demeanor towards Cain. Michael Goldsoul was among the Empire's most influential and powerful figures. Opposing him was a move only a fool would consider. Even though they were all interested in Cain and how he remained inside the Tower of Stars for so long, no one was willing to offend the Crown Prince to satisfy their curiosity. Cain perceived the shift in attitudes and simply nodded to Crane, signaling him to rise. He then proceeded to the teleportation formation. This time, no one dared to obstruct him. Casting a final glance at the old man who had presumed to command him, Cain stepped into the teleportation formation, departing the area with Crane. Whispers erupted among the bystanders, speculating about the young man's identity while also sending mocking glances toward the old man. An unseemly expression appeared on the elder's face. He had tried to assert his dominance, but only succeeded in making a fool of himself and might have drawn the animosity of a young genius. Cain wasn't one to dwell on such trivialities and just stared at the old man before leaving to make sure he remembered the face of this one in case they crossed paths in the future. Upon reaching the main plaza, Cain turned to Crane, who immediately briefed him on everything that had happened since he set foot inside the Tower of Stars. While initially everything seemed unremarkable, Cain was taken aback to learn that the Golden Emperor had intervened, delaying the genetic tournament for an entire month. Cain did not attempt to understand the motivations of someone atop the Godslayer humankind empire, so he just silently thanked the Golden Emperor.
I need a place to rest.
Although Cain's body and soul were in good condition, his mind required relaxation. He could walk and talk without a problem, but there was immense pressure on his brain due to the ocean of knowledge he had been exposed to.
The Crown Prince has lent us a villa for our stay until the Genetic Coda tournament.
Crane had been proactive, securing a comfortable location for Cain. After a moment of contemplation, Cain nodded in agreement. The Crown Prince had assisted him before, and lending a modest villa was minor compared to the privilege of entering the 3 Towers of Adam. The pair utilized another teleportation formation and soon found themselves within a great castle staffed with individuals ready to cater to their needs. However, Cain's only desire was rest. He promptly retreated to his quarters for a night of deep sleep. Upon awakening, Cain's priority was to organize the knowledge and insights imprinted upon his soul by the Tower of Stars. Yet, another issue weighed on his mind.
Apex, what's happening with my soul?
Speaking solemnly to the system spirit, Cain felt Apex would have the answers. Actually, his instincts suggested that Apex was the reason behind the strange behavior of his soul. Apex remained silent briefly before responding.
I hesitated to tell you initially to avoid distraction and to ensure you didn't underestimate the importance of your soul force. However, the truth cannot be hidden any longer.
After uttering those words, the golden humanoid inside Cain's soul waved his hand, teleporting the astral blood beast soul Ka to the center of the dimension. Cain's eyes widened as he observed a shining sphere enveloped in chains, radiating spiritual energy into his soul sea. His face turned white as he saw how a foreign soul foss fused with his. Although his knowledge about the soul was limited, he understood the dangers of merging a different soul foss with Ya's. In the best case, he would develop a split personality, and in the worst, a severe case of psychosis and schizophrenia. However, after taking a moment to see things more clearly, Cain noticed how the new soul foss was empty of any form of ego or will, which would avoid any problem. Apex gave Cain a moment to adapt before explaining things.
This is the condensed soul force of the astral blood beast. The creature attempted to invade your soul. Still, I managed to harness the absolute life form system's full power to contain it. Now it's enhancing your soul. This is why your blood type skill is so potent and how you endured the Tower of Stars for 15 days.
A smile emerged on Cain's face. The soul, the essence of an individual, was notoriously challenging to enhance. Now, he not only had a direct sauce, but also seemed to possess a defense against spiritual assaults.
HMPH brat, don't get cocky. I had to use the system's full power to protect you from the astral blood beast's possession. If it were to happen again, who knows what might transpire.
Apex quickly discerned Cain's thoughts and promptly countered them. He didn't want the young man to become complacent or undervalue the importance of mental defenses, which is why he had stretched the truth about the difficulty of managing the astral blood beast. If Apex were to say that it took less than a second to take care of the astral blood beast's soul invasion, Cain might unconsciously neglect the importance of his soul defenses. After all, why would he need to worry if there was an unshakable shield protecting his soul? Cain's expression darkened, and he immediately nodded in understanding. The soul was both precious and fragile and demanded constant vigilance, so he must never lower his guard. After grasping the essence behind the recent alterations, Cain could finally concentrate on his cultivation and the experiences in the Tower of Stars.
Realm of stellar synthesis.
His sonic blade fusion cultivation technique referenced this realm, but only after navigating the Tower of Stars did he begin to fathom a fraction of it. A cultivator first comprehends the birth and demise of stars, the primal architects of existence. Like colossal nuclear reactors, stars undergo nuclear fusion at their cause. This fusion of lighter elements, mainly hydrogen and helium, begets heavier elements. Understanding stellar nucleosynthesis aids a cultivator in grasping the elemental creation process. Following hours of meditation, this was the epiphany Cain achieved. He only had to close his eyes to recall the sensation of merging with a meteor, becoming a supernova, and initiating the birth of new stars. While this knowledge would be instrumental in his future cultivation, it wouldn't enhance Cain's current battle power. The realm of stellar synthesis comprised the understanding stage and the harnessing stage. Cain had just scratched the surface of understanding, and even if he could consolidate that knowledge, his current physique was not prepared to wield that power. It was akin to owning a computer equipped with state-of-the-art software, but restrained by hardware that couldn't fully showcase its capabilities. After achieving the Wave King rank, my body's cellular composition will be capable of harnessing the realm of stellar synthesis's power. Until then, my focus during the Wave Champion rank is to reinforce my foundation as robustly as possible. If everything goes well, I might reach the harnessing stage in the early Wave King rank. Pondering his next move, Cain dispatched a message to Crane.
Secure 10 tons of golden level metals.
Cain's blood rebirth was reaching the peak of the golden stage. Once that happened, he could evolve his biomtal Herculean technique to the golden level, attaining a body as resilient as a golden wave artifact.
Immediately, Lord.
Find adventures on Freeweb Novel. Crane responded instantly, allowing Cain to resume his tasks. He procured a high-quality wave crystal, the blood apple, and the starry gem containing knowledge on genetic coding. The genetic coda tournament would commence in fewer than 20 days, and he was ready to display the full might of his abilities. Cain divided his focus into 3 areas, honing his cultivation foundation, fortifying his body, and deepening his insights into genetic coding. 20 days might appear extensive, but for Cain, they passed in a flash. Before he knew it, the genetic coda tournament was upon them. Adorning his noble attire, he exited the villa with Crane. The pair arrived at the main plaza and used the teleportation formation to access the Genetic Coding Association's grounds, where the tournament would be held. Unlike his initial appearance, Kane's presence now captivated many young genetic coders. His reputation had burgeoned, especially within the Genetic Coder Association. He was the first honorary Grandmaster of the association in ages, all the more remarkable since he was not even 17. Kane didn't pay much attention and simply walked toward the teleportation formation that transporting him and Crane into the genetic evolution cube. As soon as the duo appeared, they noticed that the cube's center now boasted a grand platform with improved genetic chambers. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 356, Genetic Tournament AI. Kane arrived just in time and observed that dozens of people were already present. He immediately recognized the Crown Prince, Third Imperial Prince, Second Imperial Princess, and the Fourth Imperial Prince, along with many other figures exuding formidable auras. All the Imperial children had their eyes on Kane, as did everybody else in the cube. There was nothing odd with it. After all, he was the reason the tournament was delayed by an entire month, and the news of him remaining inside the Tower of Stars for nearly 15 days was common knowledge. It seemed like there was no day that a shocking piece of news about the young man would spread across the Silver City. Without further ado, Kane calmly approached the Fourth Imperial Prince. He would be participating in this tournament under his banner. I assume those two are my partners. Kane observed two individuals standing behind the Fourth Imperial Prince. One was a younger man, and the other resembled a middle-aged man at the Wave King rank. Both had short silver hair, pale skin, and matching physical features, suggesting they were likely related. For the tournament, the groups were supposed to consist of one elder genetic coder, someone under 500 years of age, and two novice genetic coders, individuals under 30. While the novice genetic coders would take the initial tests of the genetic tournament, the main events would have all three genetic coders working together. At that point, it was expected to have the elder genetic coder take the lead and the two novice genetic coders assisting him. Numerous eyes turned toward the group of the Fourth Imperial Prince, eager to witness the interaction between the elder genetic coder and Kane. While the middle-aged man would nominally assume the lead, many considered Kane to be at least a four-star Saint genetic coder. Kane was aware of the attention, but paid it little mind. He bowed to Klaus before focusing on the two companions.
Kane, I'm relieved to see you're well. These are Grandmaster Demento Yoria, a 3-star Saint genetic coder, and his apprentice, Severin Yoria, a 4-star Grand genetic coder.
Klaus spoke with a friendly smile as he introduced the pair, but a hint of tension lingered on his visage. While Kane might be participating in his team, the Imperial Prince was acutely aware of how tenuous his influence over the young man truly was. Kane gave Severin a brief nod and then set his piercing gaze on Demento. The older man met his stare without flinching, exuding an unwavering resolve. A burst of red light appeared in Kane's eyes as he stared at Demento, who promptly responded with a blue glow. The room went silent as the two exchanged ego waves, and it was evident to all that despite the significant gap in their ages and cultivation bases, both stood on the same level. Kane's eyes settled, and a smile graced his face. He clasped his hands together, bowing to the middle-aged man.
Kane Lorifer offers his respects to the Elder Grandmaster. I consider my abilities to be on par with a 1-star Saint genetic coder, so I am at your service.
Many were surprised by Kane's behavior. After all, one could make the argument for him to take the leading role in the main event since his skills were considered superior to those of Demento. While it would have been unorthodox and embarrassed Demento, few would have opposed it since what the Godslayer humankind respected was not age, but power. However, not only did Kane not take that path, giving Demento the leading role without a fight, but he self-assessed his skill as a 1-star Saint genetic coder. Young prodigies often exuded arrogance, but Kane seemed to downplay his own status. Truthfully, without the aid of the genetic coder module, these were Kane's real capabilities, at least before his latest training session. Kane didn't mind taking guidance from Demento. In fact, he hoped to learn from the man. Hundreds of years of experience were at his disposal, and there was no reason to deny it, just to inflate his ego. Demento grinned at Kane's words and also clasped his hands.
It's an honor to have a grandmaster of your stature as my teammate. I will strive to harness your abilities to their fullest.
He then shot a stern look at the young man beside him. Severin caught Demento's gaze and promptly bowed.
I'll do my utmost not to let Grandmaster Lorifer down.
Although Severin was older than Kane, having been raised in a family that prized genetic coding, he was taught to respect skill over age. Klaus breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that Kane would collaborate and was willing to play a supporting role to Demento. With no immediate controversy, attention on the group led by the 4th Imperial Prince waned. Moments later, a figure descended from the upper tiers of the genetic evolution cube. The individual was none other than Silan White, someone at the peak of the Genetic Coda Association. Silan acknowledged the members of the imperial family, but that was the extent of his courtesy. Given his age and power, he wasn't inclined to show excessive deference to a group of younger individuals. The imperial children responded with smiles and nods, none acting pretentious, even the 3rd imperial prince. Silan was not only a powerhouse, but would also referee the genetic tournament. Only someone with Silan's power and status could ensure the tournament was judged fairly, and that outsider influence could not affect the outcome.
Welcome all to the 129th Genetic Tournament. We gather to showcase the talents of upcoming Grandmasters and the younger generation, hoping to unearth future pillars of the Empire. All teams, please take your positions before the designated genetic chambers.
Following Silan's direction, teams positioned themselves. There was a palpable fighting spirit as they prepared to display their prowess. The genetic tournaments happen once every 10 years, and while their reward for the number 1 spot was not overly remarkable, the genetic coders that participated aimed at something else. What they sought was fame, since it could open many doors, allowing their genetic coding abilities to jump to the next level. Silan showed a small smile as he saw the fighting spirit of the novice genetic coders.
The individual trials are for the novice genetic coders. The younger generation must prove themselves. Teams, choose your champions.
Although each team had 2 novice genetic coders, only one would partake in the individual trials. Nearly all the teams had already discussed who would participate in the solo trials, except for Klaus' team. Luckily, no problem arose this time either, as Severin clasped his hand and performed a small bow toward Kane, indicating this one should take the stage. Continue reading stories on Freeweb Novel.
I will do my best.
With those words, Kane moved forward. Once all 10 participants stood before the genetic chambers, Silan nodded and continued.
While genetic coding is an art of finesse, time is invaluable. Whether in war, cultivation, or daily life, speed is crucial. The first trial is to assemble pseudo-saint vectors as swiftly as possible.
The participants grinned upon hearing the challenge. Despite their internal confidence, none believed their skills surpassed Kane Lafayette's, but in assembling a vector, speed was paramount. Their cultivation base suggested reflexes and cognitive speed superior to Kane's, since they were all either late or peak wave champions. Kane noticed the competitors' smirks. A mischievous smile and a glint of ambition emerged on his face. Silan waved his hand, filling the genetic chamber with materials for the vectors.
Enough materials are provided to form 100 vectors. The participant who finishes fastest with the fewest errors will take first place and earn 10 points for their team. The second earns 5 points, and the third only 2.
As Silan prepared to signal the start, Kane raised his hand.
Yes, Colonel Lorfier. I wonder if making bets with my fellow participants is permissible.
Some frowned upon hearing this, but many smirked. Greed was the characteristic emotion of the Godslayer humankind, and while looking it down, many considered it a virtue. After all, it was humans' greed that led them to Ether. Usually, Silan would discourage interruptions, but given Kane's title, he permitted it.
If they're within reason.
Kane thanked Silan and unveiled his Tier 1 biogenetic chamber. All participants' eyes gleamed with envy, recognizing the value of the chamber and desiring it for themselves.
I'm willing to wager my Tier 1 biogenetic chamber and the formula for the Life Trent lineage. You only need to offer something valued at 25% of the chamber and formula. If any of you secures the first position, that individual will claim the prize and other bets will be returned. However, if I win, I take everything.
The youths couldn't help but clench their fists at Kane's proposition. If Kane triumphed, his gain would substantially outweigh his initial stake. Yet, the allure of the Tier 1 biogenetic chamber was too compelling to ignore. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 357, Genetic Tournament, EI. The novice genetic coders exchanged glances and nodded, deciding to take the bet. A silent agreement formed among them. One of them had to win. An awkward expression appeared on the faces of the people watching the tournament as they saw the youth trying to amass the massive amount of wealth needed to participate in the bet. The Tier 1 biogenetic chamber was more expensive than a full set of platinum tier artifacts. So many of them were forced to ask their elders and family for assistance. Everybody who came to this place had a wealthy and powerful background behind them, so even if the amount they had to gather was immense, they all did it quickly. Finally, all 9 youths managed to amass enough wealth and place their bets. After that, everybody adopted a meditative position before the genetic chambers as they unleashed their ego wave, ready to act as fast as possible. If before they were motivated, now there was fire emerging from their eyes as they pushed themselves to the peak. No matter what, they could not allow Kane to take the first place. Kane smiled as he saw that and calmly fused his ego wave into the genetic chamber.
Begin.
Silan's voice echoed across the cube, and a set of virtual numbers appeared above each genetic chamber, indicating the amount of vectors the novice genetic coder had managed to assemble. The novice genetic coders began to manipulate the vectors, constructing one at a time as fast as possible. All of them were pushing their minds to the limit and burning their ego waves to enhance their cognitive abilities. However, there was one who was not assembling the vectors. Kane continued to spread his ego wave into the chamber and had yet to start. People grew confused as no matter how good he was, the others were advancing at a shocking speed. There were even some that sneered, thinking that Kane was being too conceited. They did not understand that Kane was spreading his ego wave to touch every one of those vectors. Unlike the other novice genetic coders who were assembling one vector at a time, Kane would take a different path. He would take control of every component inside the genetic chamber and act on all of them simultaneously. Usually, assembling 100 vectors at the same time would be impossible due to the effort required, but Kane was different. Not only did the pieces automatically arrange themselves in his mind, but with the flow, he could perceive the connection between them, making everything much more straightforward. Of course, this also required an ego wave that reached the second realm, and only Kane had reached that level among the novice genetic coders. Once Kane's ego wave touched every single vector, the red light in his eyes burst, and he pushed his mind to the limit. In less than 5 seconds, the scar above Kane, that red 0, changed to 100. When the other young geniuses saw that, they all froze and stopped working on their vectors. The second fastest had not even completed 15 vectors, so calling it a competition would be a little too much. Kane's speed was in a completely different league. Silence reigned as people witnessed that incredible feat of skill, but it didn't last long.
He is cheating.
The one who shouted was a young man with azure hair and sky-blue eyes, part of the 3rd Imperial Prince Group. The Grandmaster behind him was none other than Salaman. Clearly, this one was part of the Azure royal family. The young man's face was full of indignation as he shouted and pointed at Kane. Unfortunately, the young man's words did not have the effect he expected. Instead of focusing on Kai, all eyes turned on him with either disdain or pity. It was only at this point that the man from the Azure royal family realized his mistake. He couldn't accept Kane's skill, so he shouted without evidence, making himself look foolish. There was no way Kane would have cheated with so many Grandmasters present and inside a grand artifact like the Genetic Evolution Cube. And even if Kane had somehow cheated, unless the young man from the Azure royal family could provide evidence, it did not matter. A nasty expression appeared on the 3rd Imperial Prince's face as he saw the young man's display, further reducing his opinion of the Azure royal family. Salaman noticed this and fury appeared in his eyes as he stared at the young man, making a mental note to teach him the weight of his actions later. Cain remained unperturbed by all this and simply smiled, relaxing his ego wave to let his body rest. While assembling all 100 vectors at the same time was impressive, it pushed his mind to the limit, and he needed a break. Enjoy new stories from Freeweb Novel. Silan said nothing, merely glancing at the youth, then turned to the others, reminding them that second and third place was still up for grabs. The youth silently cried as they thought of the wealth they had just lost, but they clenched their teeth and pushed themselves forward, aiming to at least get something from this. It took an hour before they all finished. The second place went to the second Imperial Princess team, and the third to the Crown Prince's group. The youth from the Azure Royal family was skilled, but the mental pressure of his mistake threw him off his rhythm, and he was the slowest to complete the 100 vectors.
First place, Cain Lorifer, 4th Imperial Prince's team. Second place, Jordan Simeon, 2nd Imperial Princess's team. Third place, Salian Gaiman, Crown Prince's team.
Silan's voice echoed across the cube as he declared the winner of the first contest. Cain smiled as he heard the verdict and used his ego wave to condense the life wave around the treasure and wealth gained, making it levitate before depositing it in his space ring. That was just part of it, since he also gained millions of military credits. Ha ha ha, I am filthy rich. Cain could not help but show a smile unlike any he had shown before as he saw the immense amount of wealth he had amassed. He was now rich even by the standards of Eden, and it came just in time since he had spent nearly all the military credits he had left amassing the tons of golden-level metals. Silan allowed the youth to rest for 30 minutes, going through the experience before waving his hand and filling the genetic chamber again.
A flaw might not seem much, but when it comes to our genes, they are paramount to catastrophe. The next trial focused on figuring out the flaws in the genetic chains inside the genetic chamber.
Once again, a sharp light appeared in the youth's eyes. When it came to detecting flaws, more than talent, experience came into play. Cain was young and divided his talent into his cultivation and hypnosis master, so they all believed they should be better than him since they spent nearly every hour of their life amidst genetic coding. Just as the rest of the novice genetic coders gained a sense of confidence, Cain's voice echoed once again.
I can see the pride in your faces, meaning you have absolute trust in your abilities. If that is the case, who is willing to bet one more time? This time, I will only ask you to put something equal to 15% of the worth of my Tier 1 biogenetic chamber and Life Trent lineage formula.
Cain's face was calm, and there was nothing odd about it, but those who focused on his eyes could clearly see the greed in them. By now, there was no one who failed to recognize Cain's tendency towards gambling. Even if one considered it a disgusting habit, there was little you could say about it if he always won.
Ahem.
Just as some of the novice genetic coders were mustering the courage to take the bet, their elders either coughed or signaled that they should refrain from it. None of them would be willing to lend any more money, so they should not even ask for it. Cain saw that no one was willing to bet this time and could only sigh before shrugging his shoulders. He had already won a lot and was just trying his luck. Silan could only shake his head as he witnessed this, but there wasn't much he could say about it. Cain was just 17 years old, so it was normal for him to have eccentricities. Not to mention, there was no cultivator without their own peculiar behaviors. After all, what is the point of strength and fame if you do not enjoy it, acting according to your heart's desires?
You have 1 hour. Find as many flaws as possible. Once you find and mark them, the counter above your genetic chambers will change.
After those words, Silan gave the youths a moment to focus before waving his hand, indicating the start of the trial. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 358, Genetic Tournament, IV. This time, Cain began as swiftly as the others, and his eyes immediately burst with a red light as he began to decipher the flaws in the genetic chains. Not even a minute had passed, and the counter above his genetic chamber had already reached the 100 mark. Shock and awe appeared on the faces of the other novice genetic coders as they witnessed this, especially since the second place had only reached 15. It was clear to all that Kane Lorifa's genetic coder abilities were in a completely different league. Asking him to compete with other novice genetic coders was like asking an Apotheosis Realm master to discuss cultivation with a wave champion. Still, no matter how much it frustrated the other teams, Kane had the right to participate in the two trials since he was under 30. In fact, of the 10 novice genetic coders, he was the youngest by far. Kane focused solely on the genetic chamber, analyzing every genetic chain. The flow played a crucial role as it allowed him to perceive the frequency of each chain, and anything that was out of tune was clearly a mistake. The more he learned about the flow, the more Kane realized that it was not an ability made for only the battle. It could reach every aspect of a cultivator's life. Kane was sure he was just touching the surface of the flow, but his cultivation was still too low to delve deeper into it. Although the flow was an extremely important subject, Kane kept his mind focused. Kane's eyes and hands moved faster and faster, and the number above his genetic chamber kept increasing. By the time the 1 hour limit was reached, the second-best novice genetic coder had detected 1203 flaws, while Kane's score surpassed 15,000. The difference was just too significant, to the point that even if the other novice genetic coders added their marks, they would still lose. Silan wore a complicated expression as he observed the reactions of the other novice genetic coders. They were truly in a completely different league, making them question their skills. However, the man did not offer words of compassion. Genetic coding was full of struggles, and if they couldn't surpass this challenge, they were never meant to become grandmasters to begin with.
First place Kane Lorifa, 4th Imperial Prince's team, 2nd place Jordan Simeon, 2nd Imperial Princess team, 3rd place Nyan Azure, 3rd Prince's team.
The first and second places remained unchanged, but this time, the novice genetic coder of the 3rd Imperial Prince team claimed the 3rd place. It seemed that the young man from the Azure royal family only needed time to relax in order to showcase his true skills. Kane glanced at the young man from the Azure royal family and was surprised. He had never expected that man to take 3rd place, since many others displayed greater genetic coder abilities. How odd. There was no reason for someone to be an expert in genetic flaws while failing in other aspects of genetic coding. However, Kane didn't dwell on it. While Kane was talented in genetic coding, his knowledge was still limited to the mainstream path. Perhaps the Azure royal family had insights that improved certain aspects, allowing their mastery over genetic flaws to surpass others. Of course, there was also the possibility that the Azure novice genetic coder had cheated. Still, Kane did not have any evidence of that, and he would not go around making a fool of himself by accusing someone of a crime without proof. Silan was also a little surprised about the 3rd place winner, but since the cube detected nothing wrong, he moved on. He gave the participants an hour to rest before signaling the elder genetic coders and 2nd novice genetic coders to step forward, assembling the entire teams. Then he waved his hand, projecting a virtual screen with the team's scores above him. 4th Imperial Prince, 20 points. 2nd Imperial Princess, 10 points. Your journey continues with Freeweb novel. Crown Prince, 2 points. 3rd Imperial Prince, 2 points. Smiles adorned the faces of the Imperial family members, but the brightest shone on the 4th Imperial Prince. Klaus nodded appreciatively, receiving praises from other contestants. For the 4th Imperial Prince, the prize of winning was insignificant, but the acclaim that came with victory was invaluable. With Kane on his side, his win seemed inevitable. Silan allowed everyone a moment to strategize before speaking again.
The next test involves the entire team. Each team must create wave viruses. One must be a wave talent enhancer, the other a lifespan enhancer, and the last a battle survival enhancer. You can choose your viruses, but they must fall into those categories. We will evaluate each wave virus and give a ranking according to their efficiency. The first place in each category will gain 10 points. 2nd place earns 5, and 3rd place gets 2.
Solemn expressions gripped each team, especially the one led by Malon White of the 2nd Imperial Princess group. They still had a shot at winning the tournament. If they secured 1st place in 2 out of the 3 categories, their score would surpass that of the 4th Imperial Prince's team.
You all have 10 minutes to prepare your formulas and gather the necessary materials. The first wave virus will be the Wave Talent Enhancer.
Silan uttered those words before adopting a meditative position in the air, waiting for the teams to decide. Like the other teams, Kane, Demento, and Severin began discussing their strategy, using their ego waves to maintain privacy.
Before I make a suggestion, does Grandmaster Lorifer have any unique formulas that could be useful in this situation?
Demento asked Kane, hopeful for any advantage. It would not be odd for a divine talent like Kane to have access to a unique inheritance with special formulas to deploy better effects than others at the same rank. That would actually explain the young man's sudden rise as a genetic coda. Unfortunately for Demento, Kane's talent relied on the genetic coda module and the flow, neither of which granted him access to unique formulas.
The only saint formulas I have are for the Life Trent lineage and True Avernus lineage. I was hoping to acquire a Wave Talent Enhancer formula for the saint level after this.
Kane answered honestly. Demento nodded, accepting the response.
I have several formulas at my disposal. Some I'm confident in, while others are too challenging for me alone. I have a peak 4-star genetic formula for a Wave Talent Enhancer Wave Virus, but success will heavily depend on Grandmaster Lorifer's assistance since it surpasses my current abilities.
Kane's face grew solemn.
I will do my best.
Demento smiled, appreciating Kane's humility. The elder genetic coda did not want an overly confident youth who did not understand the difficulty of a 4-star wave virus and whose arrogance could lead to mistakes.
That will be enough.
Demento then turned to Severin.
Severin, you'll assist me and Grandmaster Lorifer. Stay focused. We might only require your assistance a couple of times during the entire project, but that could make the difference between success and failure.
The young man's face was as serious as it could be as he nodded, and his eyes burst with golden light.
I will not fail you, Father.
Upon hearing that, Demento showed a brief smile, but it quickly faded, replaced by a stern expression as he nodded to the young man. Next, he shared the genetic formulas with Kane. Kane couldn't help but frown as he analyzed the genetic formula. It was truly complex, and there was no way he could succeed alone. Luckily, he would only play a supporting role, so he nodded in understanding. Silan opened his eyes, signaling the time to start.
Start.
Each team began communicating with their genetic chamber, silently demanding the materials required for their wave viruses. Kane observed the genetic chamber filling with liquid as Demento requested materials, and his eyes narrowed as he looked to the other teams. A meaningful light appeared in his eyes as he communicated with Apex. Apex, can the AI chip module scan the process of the others without altering the cube or alerting anyone? The current capabilities of the modules of the Absolute Life Form system matched a complexity equal to the Apotheosis realm. However, the AI chip module was special as it grew stronger alongside his soul force and didn't require a direct upgrade. It can, but that would mean there won't be a chance to use the genetic coda module to fix the flaws of the next wave virus you and the others are going to make. It would require the full power of the system. Kane smiled upon hearing that answer. He never planned to use his Destiny Force in the tournament, so there was no issue with the module being inactive. Do it. As soon as Kane uttered those words, the Absolute Life Form system focused its entire power on the AI chip module, deploying an invisible force field that engulfed the other genetic chambers. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 359, Genetic Tournament V. If everything went well, Kane could use the data to replicate the genetic formulas the other teams would use. It took only a minute for the genetic chamber to fill with the materials needed. The next second, the ego waves of Kane, Demento, and Severin fused, allowing the trio to establish a telepathic link as they began their work. The first step was the creation of the vector, the vehicle for the future genetic chain. The better it was constructed, the easier it would be for the wave virus to alter the correct genomic sequence. Demento handled the brunt of the work, while Kane ensured that the pieces were handed over in a perfect sequence, significantly reducing the task's burden. Severin stood vigilant, ready to intervene if needed. No sound could be perceived inside the genetic evolution cube, as everyone was intently focused on their genetic codas. Virtual images appeared in the sky, showcasing the macroscopic work all were undertaking, and even those with the power to emulate nuclear weapons could not help but feel awe and wonder at such a marvel. All those powerhouses could level entire cities with a wave of their hands, but to control the building blocks of creating was an ability that required years of hard work and absolute dedication. How could someone not feel respect for the display of such devotion to a craft? There was no time limit in this round, so every team was working at a steady pace, ensuring no flaws arose. Of course, it still required a certain speed, since once the creation of the vector or genetic chain began, there could not be prolonged delays as it could lead to instability and flaws. While Cain used the system to gather information about other teams, his primary attention was on his own genetic chamber. His eyes emitted a brilliant red light as he accurately handed the vector components to Demento. An hour passed and smiles crept onto the faces of both Demento and Cain when they finally saw their completed vector. Though they couldn't be sure, it seemed to be a golden saint vector, possibly flawless. Had they crafted a weaker vector, no matter how good the theoretical efficiency of the wave virus was, it could only offer a subpar effect in reality. Their excitement notwithstanding, the team remained focused, knowing that crafting the vector was the easiest part. Now, they had to create the genetic chain the wave viruses caused, which was far more challenging. The vector would reach the cells that needed to be altered, but it was the genetic chain that would perform the genetic modification. Knowing that, it was easy to understand how even the slightest flaws in the genetic chain could lead to disaster, not only failing to improve the wave talent of the individual, but diminishing it. Demento resumed the lead role, while Cain worked diligently to preempt any potential errors. Both pushed their minds and abilities to the utmost limit. Occasionally, minor instabilities would appear in the genetic chain. While they were not serious, they could lead to severe problems, such as unwanted mutations, if left unchecked. Luckily, Severin would swiftly stabilize the genetic code until Cain or Demento could rectify it. The trio was working in perfect harmony, each taking care of their role with absolute focus, while at the same time making sure the other two did not miss something. Of course, Cain's team was not alone since everybody was pushing their limits, their ego waves burning rapidly to enhance cognitive abilities. As hours went by, the genetic chains grew more and more refined, nearing the completion point where they would be inserted in the vector, completing the wave virus. After 31 hours, the first team to finish was that of the Third Imperial Prince. The group, composed solely of members from the Azure Royal family, had completed their wave virus. It was difficult to gauge its power at a mere glance, but all Grandmasters nodded in approval, discerning it was at least a peak 3-star Saint Wave virus. Despite the arrogant nature of the people of the Azure Royal family, the trio led by Salaman did not grow cocky for finishing first, since that did not mean their work was better than the others. The silence continued, and half an hour later, the team led by Marlon White also unveiled their masterpiece. Just watching the wave virus on the screen was enough for all those present to understand just how impressive the White family's skills were. Cain's team was the third to finish. Judging by the wave virus composition, their product was of exceedingly high quality. Exhausted yet satisfied, Demento, Cain, and Severin shared a moment of relief and pride in their accomplishment. After 49 hours, the final team completed their task. Only then did murmurs and discussions resume among the observers, speculating on the victor. The Fourth Imperial Prince, Second Imperial Princess, and Crown Prince look at each other. In their minds, the top 3 positions could only belong to them, and the only question was who would be on top. Silan allowed a brief respite before signaling, causing a powerful force field to emanate from the genetic evolution cube.
The genetic evolution cube will determine the level of wave talent enhancement your wave viruses can offer to an apotheosis realm master.
All teams nodded in agreement, trusting the cube's objectivity in measuring the outcomes. After roughly 10 minutes, a virtual screen materialized, revealing the results. Third Imperial Prince, 29.3% wave talent enhancement. Second Imperial Princess, 28.2% wave talent enhancement. Fourth Imperial Prince, 28.1% wave talent enhancement. Crown Prince, 25.6% wave talent enhancement. Surprise appeared in many eyes as they read the virtual screen, and Klaus, Emerald, and Michael could not help but turn toward the third Imperial Princess with surprise and shock. While the team composed entirely of Azure Royal family members performed well, it was unexpected that their wave virus would outperform the ones deployed by the teams with Marlon White and Kane. From the expression on the third Imperial Prince's face, even he seemed taken aback and had not anticipated such a result. Regardless of the shock, he immediately puffed out his chest with a cocky demeanor. Kane shared the general's surprise, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the Azure Royal family team. Two of the novice genetic coders appeared smug, but although Salaman tried to emulate their confidence, a trace of concern and nervousness betrayed him. There is something wrong with that wave virus. Kane's instincts whispered the suspicion, but he wouldn't hurl accusations without proof. His suspicions were well-founded since the wave virus that the team of the third Imperial Princess generated was of a minor grade than the ones made by him on Marlon White's team. Although the effect of a 4-star wave virus should not necessarily be better than that of a 3-star wave virus, that was the case 99% of the time. Silan was also surprised by the effect of the Azura royal family's wave virus, but he fulfilled his role as a referee and updated the scoreboard. 4th Imperial Prince, 22 points. 2nd Imperial Princess, 15 points. 3rd Imperial Prince, 12 points. Crown Prince, 2 points. While the 4th Imperial Prince's team maintained the lead, the 3rd Imperial Prince saw a significant leap in his standings. And if the 2nd Imperial Princess's team secured first place in the next round, they could potentially overtake the lead. Everybody expected the 4th Imperial Prince team to have an easy road ahead since there were 2 Saint genetic coders in it, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The winner of the genetic tournament was now in contention, and it was impossible to know who would take the trophy, but something was clear. Stay updated through FreeWeb Novel. The 3rd Imperial Prince's team was in the race.
All teams have 5 hours to rest before the next test.
Silan's announcement was met with immediate action. Everyone on the platform assumed meditative postures, channeling their wave energy, rejuvenating their physical and mental states, and dispelling fatigue. Kane followed suit, but part of his mind remained active. He pondered the intricacies of the lost wave virus, internalizing newfound knowledge and insights. Any refinement, no matter how minor, could be pivotal.
It's time for the lifespan enhancement wave virus.
4 hours passed in what felt like a mere moment, and all genetic coders refocused, pushing their concentration to its zenith. Although the genetic chain differed this time, the overall process remained consistent. Each team began constructing the vector. Kane and Demento collaborated seamlessly, with Severin assisting whenever needed. The elder genetic master's eyes gleamed with a blue luminescence as he stretched his capabilities to their utmost. Though he remained steadfastly committed, he couldn't mask his astonishment at the noticeable improvement in Kane's movements. Evidently, Kane's skills had surged in the brief interval, a development that brought a smile to the middle-aged man's face. Their chances of success just got better. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 360, Genetic Tournament Vi. Just like before, Demento and Kane assembled the vector with remarkable efficiency. Their combined work was near perfect, reaching a standard that even a peak 4-star Saint genetic coder might not achieve. However, neither grew complacent. They had merely replicated the vector from the initial test, and if that was the pinnacle of their achievement, they would be relegated to 3rd place. Demento glanced at Kane, the weight of their task evident in his gaze. Kane returned the look with a nod, signaling his readiness. Together, they began weaving the genetic chain, molecule by molecule. This intricate process was reminiscent of assembling a puzzle, but one with trillions of pieces and no reference image. Each segment of the chain needed to be compatible with the next. A single error, even at a microscopic level, could lead to undesirable mutations, or worse, the complete failure of the wave virus. The chamber's atmosphere grew tense as all eyes turned to the teams representing the 3rd Imperial Prince, Second Imperial Princess, and Fourth Imperial Prince. It was a contest between these three for the coveted first place, and each team displayed an astounding level of skill and concentration. Hours seemed to blur into minutes and minutes into seconds. The teams were so engrossed that the external world seemed to vanish. Occasionally, Severin would interject, warning of instabilities that Cain or Demento would promptly address. The collaboration between Cain and Demento was palpable. They functioned seamlessly, enhancing each other's strengths and mitigating their weaknesses. The genetic chain evolved as time passed, increasing in intricacy and purpose. Cain had been harnessing the flow throughout, and his proficiency in genetic coding continued to rise. Suddenly, he detected a minor fluctuation in a segment crafted by Demento. It was a deviation so slight that even a four-star Saint genetic coda might overlook it. Yet, with the flow's enhancement, it was evident to him. Swiftly, he corrected the sequence, returning the chain to its intended structure. Demento shot Cain a brief look as he adjusted his work. There was no resentment, only a quiet nod of appreciation. Then, with sharpened focus, he resumed coding. The pair continued in harmony, finalizing the genetic chain, integrating it into the vector, and ultimately completing the wave virus. As they finished, Cain's awareness expanded, noting that the Third Imperial Prince's team, led by Salamon, had already achieved their goal. They were the quickest, with Cain's team trailing in second. The team representing the Second Imperial Princess, under Marlon White's guidance, was still in progress. Exhausted, Cain refrained from observing further, simply closing his eyes for some much-needed rest. Hours passed, and gradually all teams concluded their tasks. With the completion, Silan gestured, prompting the genetic evolution cube to assess each wave virus, determining the longevity it would offer Apoptosis Realm Masters. Anticipation and anxiety dominated as everyone inside the cube turned their attention to the floating virtual screen. Third Imperial Prince, 520 years. Fourth Imperial Prince, 503 years. Second Imperial Princess, 499 years. Crown Prince, 468 years. The Third Imperial Prince's team, comprised solely of the Azure royal family, emerged victorious. Praise filled the eyes of the onlookers, but whispers of suspicion about the exceptional wave virus also arose. The novice genetic coders from the Azure royal family bore smug smiles, their arrogance unmistakable. Salamon exhibited similar emotions, but the concern in his eyes was increasingly evident. Thankfully for the seasoned genetic coda, attention swiftly shifted to the Fourth Imperial Prince's team. Demento and Cain's joint effort had clinched the second spot, surpassing the team led by Marlon White representing the Second Imperial Princess. Cain and Marlon exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting both burning ambition and mutual respect. Observing his son's reaction, Silan nodded in approval, subsequently updating the scoreboard. Fourth Imperial Prince, 27 points. Third Imperial Prince, 22 points. Second Imperial Princess, 17 points. Crown Prince, 2 points. Once more, the Third Imperial Prince's team surged ahead, securing first place and earning 10 points. With Cain's team in second and the ongoing competition, the outcome remained unpredictable, with the Second Imperial Princess team potentially seizing the lead in the final test. Experience tales at Freeweb Novel.
All teams have 5 hours to rest. After that, we will begin the final test, in which you will make the Battle Survival Enhancer Waste Virus.
Silan's voice was booming, and there was a solemn tone in it, making it clear that the end of the tournament was coming. The mention of the final test sent a renewed surge of energy through the chamber. The Battle Survival Enhancer wave viruses were among the most precious creations a genetic coda could make. A successful creation would drastically boost the combat prowess and survival instincts of any Apoptosis Realm Master, making them virtually indestructible in battle. It took hundreds of years and countless resources for a normal human to become an Apoptosis Realm Master, but only a second for them to fall on the battlefield. Knowing that, it was easy to understand just how crucial a wave virus capable of improving their survival would be in war. Cain and Demento were beyond exhausted after the creation of the Lost Wave virus and sat in silence for a few minutes as they allowed their minds to rest. Demento's eyes were sharp as he turned to Cain and spoke solemnly.
The effect of the Azure Royal's wave viruses is superb, but they are not invincible. We are close to surpassing them, and if we break out limits in the next test, there is a chance for victory.
Cain nodded.
Yes, but it will not be easy. Our minds must be sharper than ever.
Cain and Demento nodded to each other as they closed their eyes. Both of them were not happy with the second place or a tie, and their goal was to attain absolute victory. As the hours ticked by, Cain meditated, tapping into the profound knowledge of genetic coding. Slowly, he felt a shift in his consciousness. It was as if layers of understanding peeled back, revealing deeper truths about the genetic makeup and its infinite possibilities. This newfound insight was akin to enlightenment, allowing him to perceive even the minutest details of genetic sequences. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.